Welcome to All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. This podcast will explore all the subjects that make the insecure squirm in their seats. Religion, politics, local and national, the Constitution of the United States, and the wheel of love and hate, to just name a few. Stay with us as we use our freedom of speech to delve into the good and the bad. If this podcast is not for you, feel free to find another one. Without any further ado, here comes All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. All right. Welcome to another edition of All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About. We're so glad that you're out there and that you're listening. Make sure that you subscribe, you like, you share, tell all your friends about it, and because that's what helps us grow, and that's what gets the word out. And we've got a lot of things to talk about today. Today we're going to be getting back into a little of, we're going to be finishing the 7 virtues. We had 2 more that we didn't get to last time. Actually, we had 7 plus the 2 that Milan, which is good day, Milan.
Yeah, good day.
Yeah, that you added to it. So we've got 2 more virtues to work with here. And I think what we're going to do, and what I might also say to you if you're listening, if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, the 7 deadly sins, I would suggest you do that, because we're going to finish these last 2 virtues and then kind of talk about the decline of mankind, really, and have, as we've gotten away from these virtues, and kind of how the 7 deadly virtues and the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues kind of work together, and they as opposing forces, really, is what they are. So if you haven't heard that one yet, I would say, stop this one right here, go listen to that, and then come back and pick it up where we're at now. So Amanda Jones is also here in the studio. Good day to you, Amanda.
Good day.
Yeah. So let's recap really quick. What are those virtues?
Yeah. So like you said, we started out with the 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
There's 7 virtues that go with those, and they kind of work off of each other,
yeah.
Right? So
the yin and yang of life.
Yeah. You've got lust on one side, and you've got chastity, purity on the other side. You've got gluttony on one side, and temperance or moderation on the other side. Avarice, greed on one side, charity, love, generosity on the other side, envy versus kindness, wrath and anger versus patience, pride, opposite of humility, sloth and laziness and diligence on the other side of that. And so, and I'm not the only one. You mentioned that I brought 2 more.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this to you, as you said, and I think you might have purposely not said 7 deadly sins are bad, and then the 7 virtues are good, because you didn't say that and actually specifically call that out, because I think there are people out there that actually celebrate the 7 deadly sins as...
I was just thinking
that. Because you weren't saying good or bad on it. But traditionally, obviously, the 7 deadly sins are bad,
right,
and that the virtues are good. But our life these days, I think, has... For a lot of people, it hasn't, but for a lot of people, in what I see that their views are, it seems like that's flip-flopped, that they celebrate the 7 deadly sins more than they celebrate doing good and being virtuous.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to understand the whole idea of sin as it's put forth in the Bible. We have a tendency to simplify it down to sins are these things that we do, actions or behaviors or things like that. I think what the original church fathers, because the 7 deadly sins are not listed somewhere in the Bible. We find them showing up throughout the scriptures, but they're not, there's not a list of the 7 deadly sins. These are things that we have identified through the ages that are the core issues that lead us to a deadly place, deadly attitudes, deadly beliefs, deadly behaviors, and those kinds of things. So that it's the precursor to the behaviors.
Yeah.
These are the character traits or the deeper core issues that lead us into very destructive places.
Yeah. So is it more of then a secular thing than a biblical thing, the seven deadly sins, when you talk about them? Because obviously they and the virtues, they all reflect the Bible, but if you're saying they're not in the Bible, so it's not biblical, so it's really a construct of man to say these are the seven deadly sins, these are the seven virtues based on the Bible. Is that where it came from?
I don't think you could call it secular, because secular would want to be devoid of biblical influence. Whereas I think these are more along the lines of tradition or religion. Tradition and religion is man's attempt to order or make sense of what the scriptures say, put it into human terms and human models. Mm-hmm. And so it is a human model. But the seven deadly sins are definitely, I mean, we see all these things in the Bible.
Right,
I'm just saying they're not listed somewhere as the seven deadly sins.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I mean, they're certainly threaded and weaved throughout, the entire Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Old Testament, Good Testament, right to the last verse. But but I get it now. It's, they came up with these terms as ones, but it wasn't necessarily a biblical thing. It was because of the Bible, but it was man making this up. Now, it's not necessarily the word of God, specifically in a list.
In the list, right?
All right. Well, let's get back to those last two virtues.
Yeah, and again, I didn't add these. There are others that have brought these out, but they don't make the seven traditional list.
Right.
So a couple that I would say are clearly sinful dispositions that lead us into difficult places. First of all, fear. Fear is a lack of faith, so the virtue would be faith.
Yeah.
We want to talk a little bit about faith today. Deceit is the other one. Lying would fall into that, but deceit is much bigger than lying. Deceit is any attempt to mask or to change reality, right?
Okay.
And so the opposite of that, obviously, the virtue would be honesty. And so, let's talk a little bit about faith and honesty today. I think faith is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Faith is something that is kind of put in the category of, some people have it, some people don't. But at the end of the day, faith is a much deeper concept that really all of us wrestle with. And the question isn't, do you have faith? It's, what is your faith in?
Sure.
Right? When I flip a light switch, I have faith in electricity, the wiring that the electrician put into the wall, the filament in the light bulb. I have faith in a whole bunch of things that when I flip that switch, a light is going to come on. Right. That's why I go through that activity of flipping a switch.
Yeah.
I expect an outcome. And faith in the same way as a core issue. The question is, what is our faith in? What's it grounded in? And what are the kinds of things that our life is built on because of that faith?
Sure. And I mean, you can come up with all kinds of examples of it. Certainly there's the religious side. People have faith in police that they're going to do their things. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about it, and you said the opposite of faith is fear. Now, with all that being said, is there a faith that can conquer all fear? And I ask that because, I mean, if you're walking down the street and someone goes to accost you, or you see someone that looks like they could hurt you, you may have a little fear. But how can you just say, well, have faith that they won't? Keep walking, stay the course. It's that kind of thing where if you have no fear, it could certainly get you in some serious trouble. But when you have that fear and you don't act on it, or you just say, I have faith that God is watching or whatever it is, and is going to make sure that I'm okay crossing paths with this person, whoever it may be ill-advised.
Is that a promise that God made, though? I mean, is there anywhere where God promised that if you walk up to a person with a gun and threaten them, that things are going to turn out well?
Right.
No,
I wouldn't walk up if they had a gun, but there's other people that are certainly looking to do bad things to good people.
Sure. And in that case, you're not necessarily, we're not promised that we would be physically protected. Oftentimes engaging a dangerous situation, even with good cause or with, a great heart, can be a dangerous proposition, and there's risk involved. I would say maybe what you're talking about is almost more founded in knowledge, right? This idea that I understand, I know the risks, and I understand what's going on, and so I need to make a wise decision about how I'm going to respond to that situation. Fear is an emotion, and it does play a role in that. But I'm talking about more the fear that we receive as a belief system.
Okay. All right.
Right. So fear that, the opposite of faith. Faith, we would oftentimes think that the opposite of faith is unbelief, whereas really faith is not about what you believe, but it's about what you understand in terms of trust. Right. So my faith in God is grounded in belief. But for a lot of people, they think that faith, as it's talked about in the scriptures, if you have faith of a mustard seed, or if you have faith, you will be saved. And a lot of people simplify that to the concept of belief. Well, I believe there's a God. Of course I believe there's a God. I look around and I see all of this. Of course there's a God. So I must be saved, right? Well, the scriptures say that even the devil believes. He has that kind of faith. Anybody can have that kind of faith. The demons believe and they shudder because of that. It's trust that makes the difference. So the kind of faith that I trust God is the step that we need to take. Does that make sense, or did I jumble that up?
I love the way you said that, because fear. When I think of fear, I feel like lost. Mm-hmm. I just feel lost. And then the times in my life where I feel I've had that peace is when I've had faith. Oh, no, you just get that feeling in your heart, no matter what, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust it. Yeah. I trust this process of growth, and I'm blindly following it because I have that faith in it. But then when the times that I've felt fear in my life, I've had no guidance. I've just been alone. Yeah. Lost. You
spin out into worry.
Right.
Rumination.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. And the world gets dark.
It does. And then I started looking at the list that we have made, and it really fits perfect. Fear really fits perfectly with that whole list of what we would call the sins. Yeah. It's a scary place. I look at those words and I think of the times in my life that I've been in those spots, and those were scary times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a space that's devoid of God.
Right.
Because faith invites God, or actually I would say more accurately, puts us into the presence of God where fear has to disappear.
And then just going a little earlier, Rob started talking about, this is kind of what's put into our media nowadays, especially with music and music videos. You need to have all the women, all the money, all the power. And they don't really celebrate the virtue side of, look at this wholesome young man or young woman that's making little love song musics. Those people aren't exalted. It's the ones that are with the guns and the women and the money and the power. And those are the examples that the youth are seeing.
Yeah. Although I will have to say that when that guy from down south, I can't remember his name, came out, the songs about the men in, killing me that I can't remember. It's a guy with a big beard, and he got the music video just out back in his backyard in the woods.
Uh-huh.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
Is it new or old?
No, it's new.
Oh, I don't know.
And I mean, it totally has made his career. And I'm going to look it up after I ask you this question first, so I don't have to feel like it's a total idiot because I can't remember his name. But it's not my kind of music, but it's like a bluegrass, but it's really, really soulful. I'll get you out so I can tell you his name, but it's kind of country, and it's all about the tyranny of what our government is doing right now.
Actually, if you don't mind, if I go off into that a little bit, it used to seem that most marketing was driven by lust, right? For money, for power, for sex. Mm-hmm. And that was the really powerful tool that you would use in marketing to try to get people's attention. I believe it's more fear now. How many, especially in politics, my word, it's vote for our candidate or the result is disastrous.
Yeah.
But even when it comes to products, a lot of times it's based on fear. You don't want to be without this. You don't want to be, like that. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something north of Richmond. When you can't remember the name of something, it's real hard to search for it. Richmond, north of Richmond. That was Oliver Anthony that came out with that. And it's just a really nice little video. It's so simple. It's him playing his steel guitar with a microphone. I always got a deer blind out behind him somewhere down south. And this song went like platinum. It just went through the roof. It's a beautiful, wonderful song when you listen to the lyrics. But what I want to say is where we stepped off into the deep end for me is when you said faith usually was equated to the belief in God. And as a young man, I stopped going to church when I was 18 years old as a senior in high school, heading off to college. Mm-hmm. And so right there, that's when my growth about faith ended. To me, that's exactly what it meant. If you have faith, you believe in God. That's exactly what that meant. And that's because my evolution of learning stopped at 18 years old when everything was still about me.
Right. But the trust factor was also a very important part of that, because you took your trust out of the hands of God. You were no longer, and I think up until that point,
put it
you
into
weren't
my coach at Ferris is what I did after that.
Well, you put it into your coach. You put it into at some point friends, women, yourself, your own abilities.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Our faith, like I said, it's not a matter of we don't have faith. It's what is our faith in, and we end up putting our faith in all kinds of things, and that's
technology. I mean, we especially. I mean, we talked about the electric light bulb, but we have. Could you imagine if all devices disappeared, what people's brains would do? I think they would explode.
You mean like if there was an EMP or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to do basic survival, like make a fire.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't know how to make a fire without a lighter or something like that. There's lots of things that people just don't know how to do nowadays. And they would be scared. In my head, if you would have asked me a year ago, in my head, everybody went camping when they were younger. They went to a youth camp and learned how to do these things. No, people haven't. People don't know how to do these things.
I mean, and a perfect example in South Haven is we've had drownings because to me, every time someone comes here, they know how to swim. They know what they're doing. They should all know that, and it's just not the case. So many people don't know how to swim. I was brought up in the pool at 3-4 years old. I was thrown in the pool, and that's my whole life was in a pool. But to me, that's my lived experience. But most people's lived experience is not anything to do with swimming and being in the water.
Yeah, you actually bring up something really important in this particular topic, that we have to define the kind of fear that we're talking about as a deadly sin, because there's another kind of fear that produces respect, a respect for the water, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, when you drive by in the wintertime and you see all the ice, out on the lake, and there's people walking out there, you're like, those people have no healthy fear, respect, for the power of the lake and what can happen.
Is there something wrong with you if you still want to be out there? Because every time I want to, I know that I shouldn't. But if someone told me I needed to go get a video shot, I would do it for sure.
Just give me one good reason.
But just to walk out there, I won't take a chance of my life. But if it was for the shot, I'd go do it.
Well, you brought up the lake drownings, and whether it's that or whether it's swimming on a windy day when there's red flags or whatever it is. And in the same way, the Bible tells us to fear God. Well, why would he ask us to do something that's one of the seven deadly sins? Well, there's, again, different kinds of fear. There's one, to be afraid of God, and that is not what the scripture is challenging us to do. It's inviting us into this place where we see God for who he is in such a way that we develop a healthy respect and an awe of God. Because he could destroy us in a moment. He could take away any and every breath, because every breath we have is a gift from God. So at any moment, our lives could be ended by the power of someone like God, and a healthy respect for him will cause us to see him in the right kind of light. Now, the sacrifice of Christ and the love of God has this incredible dynamic to it. That if I don't fear God, if he's just some old fart with a long beard and he's irrelevant and blah, 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 so what? Who cares if he loves me? Big deal. Mm-hmm. But when you see God for who he is, creator of the universe, powerful, and you know that he loves you, wow.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
I always looked at my relationship with God as like a heavenly parent. And so I always just was like, this would be like going to your parents when you did something bad and you want to get their advice.
Yeah.
That type of thing. That's been my type of relationship I've had.
And that is a part of it. That's a really important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
did you want to go on to the other?
Yes, please.
The other one?
Yeah.
So we talked about deceit as being one of the 7 deadly sins or 9 deadly sins. I guess we added a couple more. And honesty. And it's kind of funny that, when you look back that didn't make it, because we all know, I mean, it doesn't matter what culture. Actually, there are a few cultures that would say dishonesty is a virtue, a value. If you can, if you can deceive other people, that's actually a good gift.
They call that Wall Street.
That's a really rare society, based society that believes
we
that.
have those. I would call them sects. Sex in the not sex, not S-E-C-T. Yeah, we have those. I mean, when I said Wall Street, that's a place where there's a lot of deception. Yeah. I would also go to say the White House, and certain. I think there, and when you look at our government, our congressional leaders, there are some that I think you can tell they're more forthright, and then if you really watch some of the other ones, everything they say is a lie. And we said this on a past podcast, and I said this to you: you don't listen to what they say, you watch what they do.
Right, right. Well, politics is we know.
Yeah.
The question isn't are they lying? The question is how much are they lying, and what exactly are they lying about in this moment?
Yeah,
exactly.
And those zones of deceit typically happen in the big cities, especially where the capitals of the state are, where all of that government is. And that's what.
Why do you think that is?
I think
media.
Well, media is part of it, but I certainly think that it's a lot of people who are going politics to be elected the first time for sure, and every time after is a popularity contest. It is not necessarily about the ideals or the policies. It's about how you look, how you speak. That's one of the things. What's hard about looking at possibly Kamala Harris could be president. Yeah. I think she looks good. But when she speaks without a teleprompter, it's almost intelligible.
It's concerning.
You don't. I mean, the word salads are roundabout with buzzwords that never really connect into a real sentence. And it's like, okay, how does this leader now walk into, if she becomes president, to Vladimir Putin with a meeting with him?
Well,
do you think she would be able to hold out? She would toss her first sentence word salad at her, and I think he would laugh her out of the room and says, you know what, we're just going to do what we want to do.
I will say something, though. I feel prior to 2020 that she was more honest in the way she would speak publicly. And now I find the way she speaks to be more deceitful. Just because she's not staying true to her real beliefs. I want a lot of people to think that I'm for this now, but I'm still back for this. I mean, so that's where I am.
Who overnight changes their entire view structure?
It depends on who's behind them.
They call it a politician.
It is.
That really is the answer to that.
It is. But I did like what you say about the deceit. It's a warping of reality.
Yeah. If you keep saying it, eventually
really
it becomes
how it feels. True. I think that's the perfect definition for that, in my head at least.
Yeah, and it's almost essential because we've allowed politics to be a popularity contest, rather than, in my opinion, it should be us literally looking at who is the most capable leader and who is best fit to govern us.
They should be like the dating game. That the 3 candidates are all over here. You can't see them. You can't do anything. And you stand over here and ask them a question. Contestant or, candidate 1, what is your policy on the border? Candidate 2, what is your policy on the border? Candidate 3, what is your policy on the border? Rather than seeing them, looking at them, and you know what, everything kind of. I was just this morning watching a video with Jesse Jackson from 1999 up there praising. He was doing this introduction of Donald Trump to a group of people in Chicago, just saying he's the most wonderful person. He's done more for anything for black people than anybody's ever done. He's done this, done that, done this, done that. Then, of course, then he starts to run as for president as a Republican, and now he is none of those things. He is the worst man that's ever walked on the earth. He doesn't care about any black people. He doesn't care about anybody of any color. He's a white supremacist. When my lived experience and what I've seen out of politics for the past 20 years that I've really kind of paid attention is there's a group that panders to people to play on race and not it's an I don't know how they can live with themselves.
Yeah.
I just don't know how
They're
they can live with
reality.
themselves. Yeah.
They're warping reality.
I'm this, but until now he's on the other side as a Republican, he is not those things anymore. How does that change overnight?
Yeah. What's really sad for me is that this is the world that my boys are growing up in. And this is what they see. I remember a day when...
That's why it's important for us to be good parents.
Right.
We have to teach and at least teach them to be free thinkers. Not just, oh, you heard this, that must be true. Think about it. Think everything. Draw your own conclusions. And, and that we've talked about this a million times on the radio show. We may even talked about this some on the podcast. But how do you reach people when the education level of Americans is 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah.
I mean, because when you're talking about anything in politics, none of it is simple. None of it.
Right.
And so how do you explain it to, and if our average is 7th and 8th grade, that means there's a whole bunch of people on the spectrum at 2nd and 3rd grade. And of course, a lot of people at college and above to be able to bring that median to 7th and 8th grade.
It's only going to be worse because of the COVID years. Those age groups that are in like 4th, 5th grade right now are majorly struggling.
Yeah, which was certainly a whole nother. We could talk about the deceit that went through that for days.
Oh my!
And now, and then another week after that, we can talk about not the deceit, but what it's actually doing to them now that the deceit is. Well, I don't know if the deceit is done.
Well, you're gonna have a bubble effect for a certain generation where they're just gonna be a little. Wait, I don't understand that.
Well, Rob, you talked about the challenges of an uneducated society, educated at a 7th or 8th grade level.
But we're such a highly educated society too, which is so crazy.
What you're talking about is intellect. What we have not, and this whole conversation started back with what about the decline in America? We see it, mirroring a decline in the family, a decline in religion, all of these kinds of things. I believe that not only are we intellectually less progressed as a society, but also morally less. And that's more of a soft skill, right? So you talk about intellect, you can look at how much a person knows about math and science and and even philosophy and those kinds of things that we can teach in a classroom. But when you also are lower on a scale of being able to perceive and understand morality, and I believe that's what religion gives us, and actually I use that term loosely. I believe more the truth, the truth that comes through Jesus Christ from God. That when we don't know much about that, then now all of these things that we're talking about, these 7 deadly sins, become more prominent. The 7 virtues become less prominent. And so we're uneducated intellectually and spiritually.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And they're talking about like sometimes there's something in your brain that helps you with your spiritual side, and like some of the foods that we eat help to stunt that, things like that. I'm looking at my 16-year-old, and I feel like she has like a little glimpse of things. Honestly, she's the one that's brought me back to reality world.
Wow. And
I look at that as because I raised her to be a free thinker and to look at everything. And when I was starting to get sucked into the world a bit and saying, no, look, this, and that, she was the one that was like, well, Mom, this, and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, looking back now, I'm like, oh man, I need to give her like a little shopping trip or something for
a gold
helping
star.
me. Yeah, she gets a gold star Harley. But my younger ones, they don't remember any kind of values or those little teachings of when they were younger, like she did when we went to, I don't want to say, oh, it's just church, but my mind was different back then too.
Yeah.
So,
but there's something about that, and so what I think is kind of facilitating this conversation is we look at the difference between deceit and honesty, and there's a value ascribed to those things. There's a negative value to deceit, at least in civilized world. We know that deceiving one another. We know the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I don't want people lying to me. I don't want people distorting reality to me. Right? That always turns out bad for me because the other person is doing it for their own gain and all of that kind of stuff. And so part of what I'm saying is my kids growing up in this, when society around them, on the scale of from deceit to honesty or reality is farther on the deceit end, and that's all they see, then in a moral sense, they have a lower moral IQ. Yeah. And the world is more difficult.
I know people who have been so deceitful in their life, it's really, they cannot differentiate between really reality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you definitely lose a sense of reality. That is exactly what's happening in politics right now. Nobody knows what reality is. Yeah. I shouldn't say nobody. The vast majority of people, I fear, don't really have a clue what reality is. That's why we end up voting for the pretty face or the smooth talker or the person that just makes me feel good when I see them.
That's why we love our Hollywood stars so much.
Absolutely.
We put them up on such a high pedestal, and these people, other than accomplishing that, they are probably beneath most people. And then on top of that, what most people don't realize is what they may have had to do to get in that position.
Yeah.
I've had a guy, we talked about this, Ian Jacklin on the show. He was a guy who was on his way up in Hollywood. He was a Canadian champion kickboxer. He was on his way up to Hollywood. And just before it was about time to make it big, a producer brought him up to his office and says, if you want to go the next level, you need to perform on me right now. And he said, no, I'm done. I'm not doing that. And we've had him on several times. He says everybody had did that. As I'm in his office, he managed, I can see his face, John Wick, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
So when that producer asked the same thing of him, and what did Keanu Reeves do in his career? Straight to the top. So that's Hollywood. Those are the people that we idolize.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why so many people refer to Hollywood as the den of evil. Is really it's beautiful and glitzy and glamorous and looks wonderful, but it's really hell.
What would fame fall under for on the sin side? Like, what would that be? Is that just like a little bit of each?
I think there's good fame and bad fame. I think, there's some people, they come by it, they didn't search it, they didn't seek it, it happened, and they use it responsibly. There's a lot of people that don't. I think any of these Hollywood actors, I don't think they should be saying anything about anything political. Just shut your mouths.
No, not at all.
For one, most of you are dimwits. Because you can act, it means that you are a very good and deceitful person. Good actors are deceitful people.
Well, that's the new buzzword right now, bad actors.
Yeah. Well, we have plenty of them. But so I don't know quite where we were with you. I think maybe digress, but I think it's still certainly a big part of what we're talking about. Hollywood is, be careful what you see. All that shimmers is not gold.
Yeah, there's more to life than intellect or, being business savvy or having celebrity, all those kinds of things. And moral grounding is not sexy. That's the thing. It really isn't.
Yeah.
But it's an anchor point that holds us at the soul level in so many ways. And I think that's what really when I look at this, when I look at these 9 deadly sins or these 9 virtues, it's about finding anchor points that keep our soul in a safe place. And I'm thankful that through the scriptures, God has given us this.
Yeah.
Again, we talked in the very beginning in Genesis, God created perfect food for the bodies that he created. And what have we done? We've artificialized everything. We've come up with man's own version.
Genetically modified them.
We've improved, quote unquote, improved. And in the course of doing so, destroyed everything.
Right. And we're destroying our bodies too.
But we do the same thing with our hearts and our minds and our souls. These are the things that God showed us make life solid, livable, strong. And we've tried to come up with other ways to improve.
Yeah. Well, how does virtue signaling kind of end up in this? Because virtues sound like it's a good thing, but when you're always pumping yourself, I'm this, I'm doing that, and I'm there. I mean, I've seen many people, and they will do things in the name of altruism, in the name of a better community, but then they promote themselves for doing it. Is that true altruism?
Well, it goes right along with what we're talking about, honesty and deception, right? Oftentimes, virtue signaling is very deceptive because it's a distortion of the truth.
Yeah. I mean, isn't a gift something that you give, you don't need, you give it to them. And now if they go and say, oh, how wonderful this was, thank you for the gift, what an awesome thing. That's how you want to be promoted. You don't want to promote yourself in that I went out and did this to make you all safe. Look how good I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the total opposite of altruism.
Yeah. I
always think of this video. It feels
sinful to me.
I saw a video and it was of humpback whales. They were pushing away some killer whales off of a gray whale or something like that. And they're talking about the altruism of the humpback whale especially. And I just think of that video. The humpback whales didn't hang out like, hey, gray whale, look how cool we were. We saved you. They just did their thing and they just kept doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
And when I think of altruism, that's what I think of. You're just doing it to do it. And you're carrying on with life. It's like you were put on that path to either help or to walk past it. Like you get a choice every time, and opportunities and choices in life. And it's what you do with it. But I just don't think grandstanding. I mean, some people love that stuff and they love to watch people grandstand. But it's not the vibration of people I'm looking to impress.
We have a certain accepted level of that from politicians because they do. If you're running for an election, you are out there to tell people why you are the best fit, why they should vote for you. And here's my reasons. Here's what I'm going to do for you. But I think that it is the best system in the world, but it's certainly flawed. Way flawed, and we can do it. We can certainly do better, but I think that all kind of rolls into what we are eventually getting to is that decline of society, that decline of godly values or American values. American values from the 1920s and 1930s are not nearly the same as American values are now. There are people that still have them, but it's just the liberals of the 50s or the Democrats of the 50s are the Republicans of today because it's gone so far the other way. And there's so many people out there, talking to them that says, I don't recognize what I'm seeing. I don't recognize how we could be saying that, these policies are just or they're right.
Yeah, it's we've departed. Actually, altruism is really about simply valuing life, the life of another. It's okay to value our own life, but when we're willing to squash the life of another for the sake of our own pursuits, our own desires, or the things that we want, altruism dies.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's when we value another life, no matter how it affects us.
Yeah.
No matter how it affects us. And again, that's what we see. Everything is turned into competition, right? And if in order for me to take a step up the ladder, I have to kick you in the teeth and push you down the ladder, then sorry, but that's just the way life is.
And one of the biggest problems is within the last 15 years, social media has given everybody that platform to be that way.
Yeah. And here's the thing, nothing. I don't want to say nothing.
I almost talk about reverting back to the days of the 80s. Milan, rather than coming and trashing me online or me trashing you back and forth online, we see each other on the road. We punch each other in the mouth a couple times, and then we go have a beer and we're good to go. Whatever happened to that? Now we've got so many sissy men out there that they can't talk to somebody about their problems if they did something they don't like. It's all I'm going to resort to saying a bunch of stuff about them on social media and trashing them where I can be safe and hide behind my keyboard. Well, guess what, people? Every now and again, you have to get out of that from behind that keyboard, and it's going to cost you sometime.
Yeah,
and it will.
Yeah, and and then if you say something, I'll sue you. Well, you just said all this stuff about me, but you're going to sue me for retorting. Okay, so I'm a if you can find me arguing with anybody online, please send it to tabootalkback.com, and there's a contact page, and send that to me, because I try my hardest not to even engage. I'll put something up and I'll just leave it. Say what you want, but I'm not going to engage in what you have to say. But what I put up typically is either just the podcast or something I'm doing with a film. I'm not putting up stuff about, But it reminds me, I have a graphic that I really need to do, and this is the good one. Yeah, I have a bunch of them.
Is it the one from yesterday? Or
no, it's not about the South Haven death match. I think that we should bring celebrity death match into South Haven.
Oh boy.
No, it was more about I was driving through Bangor the other day, and those signs that we have on the crosswalks that says yield to pedestrians. Well, in Bangor, it says state law, just like ours say state law, and ours say state law. Theirs have a stop sign, stop for pedestrians. In South Haven, we yield for our state law over here 10 miles away is yield for pedestrians. I'm like, so, all right, which one is it? Which state am I on? Bangor or South Haven? Which state?
Right.
So
that's funny.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, the one's, because
it's almost like a different state.
Obviously, yeah, almost, yes. Almost, because there certainly is a difference between a yield sign and a stop sign.
Sure.
And that's where I think that's almost a perfect metaphor for where we are. It used to be a stop sign. But now it's just a yield. We don't have to inconvenience ourselves with totally stopping. We can just push on through.
If you're turning right, just keep going.
Yeah, once the pedestrians take that step past where I'm at, and zoom on through. You know what I mean? So that's almost the perfect metaphor for the decline of our civilization.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to stop us. We are about our own promotion, and if anything gets in the way of us, we and our culture tells us it's okay, run it over. And so again, it comes down to that lack of value for life. I when I look at the way a segment of society is responding to this abortion deal, it drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. It has gone from abortion should be something that is absolutely rare, but we have to open a window just to give space for these terrible situations and these awful conditions and the blah, blah, blah. And now at a certain convention, they bring up abortion and everybody jumps up and down and screams and hollers and
it's insane.
Whistles and they look like
really
monkeys
changed
at feeding time.
I understand some of the arguments.
Oh, I do too.
But it absolutely makes me sick when you celebrate it.
Yes.
When outside of something that big, the Democratic National Convention, they've got a booth they've got a truck where you can get an abortion or you can get a vasectomy next door.
It's insane.
That is just...
It's taken us away from nature and our power as human beings. Yeah. Like they have pins that say abortion with a heart in it. Like this isn't something that I think people should be jumping and celebrating and doing any of that.
Abortion is not medical care.
They want to say, oh, well, it's a certain week. It's still this, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
I shouldn't have said that. Hold on a second. Let me preface myself by saying that I do believe in the exceptions of rape, incest. I almost want to say, for a 16-year-old kid, you get one gimme. But I don't even want to say that because I still want to be a realist with all that. Sure. And you would hate to see a 16-year-old child be saddled with a baby that they didn't want.
I think it's the way that
because their parents end up being saddled with it typically.
They could be, but I know somebody who's had 2 children before they were 18, and she raised them, and they're still together.
And
all these
probably
things,
and wonderful. There's those.
She knew that she had power when she got pregnant. She didn't mean to. Obviously, nobody really wants to be a teenage mother, but she didn't get an abortion. Yeah. She made it work, and we don't teach kids that. I do believe it can still be fine.
I believe like someone like Candace Owens. It seems like she was almost the product of that, but an abortion that didn't work, and she. I'm not absolutely sure, but I know there's someone like her that it was. Yeah. And there are many stories of people that they tried to get an abortion, it didn't work, and these people grew up to be tremendous people in our society. And I don't really want to debate the merits or the demerits of abortion. Right. But our point is that they are celebrating it.
Exactly.
And it should never be something to celebrate. It's like a divorce. Oh, we're having a divorce party. It's a celebration. No, that's sad. Right. That's incredibly sad to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the point that I was trying to make. I don't think we're all ever going to agree on whether or not abortion should be legalized. And I get that, and I fully understand that. What I really am frustrated with is even a person who says, I think we need to have abortion should say it's a terrible thing. Yeah. But it's a reality in the world we live in.
Back in the day, Bill Clinton it needs to be safe and
rare.
Yeah, rare and safe and to protect a woman and to protect the woman.
So, and I didn't want to get into a whole thing about abortion. What I wanted to bring up was
such a slippery slope.
The value, well, because we're all emotionally charged about it.
It's a big one.
But it comes down to the value for life. How do you view life? And is it, hey, at whatever cost, my life has to move forward in whatever ways I perceive forward progress, right? I'm going to move forward, and I don't care who gets, run over in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to really take a step back, and we've got to look at our lives, and we've got to think about the decisions that we make, the way that we treat each other. I mean, deception is always about, right? I want my thing, and if I have to distort your reality or lie to you to get it, then sucks to be you, but that's what I'm going to do. All of these sins come down to selfishness, promotion of self, if necessary, at the harm of someone else.
Yeah. All right. The one question I do have to ask, because I see a lot of videos where people are talking about the abortion issue, and you'll ask someone on the left, when does life begin? They can never really give a cognizant answer. They have names. Yeah. It's a zygote. It's a clump of cells. It's this and that. You ask a Christian or someone that's on the right, a conservative, when does life begin? And they'll say conception. Mm-hmm. Right at conception, that's when life begins. That's what I was taught. Now, at the same time, let's look at nature. When do you think the life of a tree begins? When it gets together and it gets that water and it starts that chemical process, that's when life begins, right then. Why in nature that's when life begins, but with people it's not?
Because
go ahead.
Do you mind if I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we are soul beings. We're the only thing in all creation that, according to the Bible, was created in the image of God. We bear the image of God. We are soul beings. I believe that at conception, a soul birthed in heaven is placed in a physical container. Mm-hmm. And there, when those 46 chromosomes come together, 2 pairs of 23 come together.
As soon as that cell divides once is where that's where it starts.
So to me, and to Christians, that's the thing. The world oftentimes thinks, you guys are just crazy. What the heck is wrong with you? Why is this such a big deal?
That's also medical science.
It is. Yeah. I mean, life is there. We know that a baby feels things very, very early. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's all about, this is a soul being that has a physical body. And when you destroy that, you've now changed the course. We can't do that for people outside the womb. Why would we do that for somebody inside the womb? And to me, I see it the opposite way. But that's my answer.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many things, and that to me is one of the tough ones, that when you look at left and right, at least politically, that the left has that at the top of the most important things.
Yeah.
And to me, it is an important thing for our country to get figured out. It is important that there's some kind of a standard now that it's with the states for them to make those standards. States like Ohio, which we thought, a pretty conservative state, that might have said, we want less abortion. They actually they widened their laws and made it easier.
Yeah.
But so that's where it all is. Like, it's very contentious now, but I think that's part of the master plan of population reduction anyways. If we want to get into what would be a conspiracy theory, I believe it's not, because our birth rates are going down. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And when you see this all happening, and they're, oh, no, but they want us to eat bugs, they want us to do all these other different things, it's really right there in our face. So abortion is just another little piece of keeping down the population, I feel. Not as a good thing, but that's kind of what they want. I think, because Planned Parenthood, how do you name an abortion clinic Planned Parenthood? It makes zero sense to me. That's
deception.
Well, because they want...
We're trying to lie about who we are.
They are saying parenthood should be something that's planned, that, oh, no, it doesn't have to be, oops, I'm pregnant. Like, sometimes those are what happens. And
is that the rationale behind the name?
It depends on how you look at life. Is it something that's a gift from God or a gift from the universe? Or is it, oh, well, no, this is my life, my plan, my autonomy.
Something we control.
Because... before my daughter was born, I had 2 miscarriages while I was in the military before the 12-week mark. And if you were to have asked me then, oh, when does life start? Well, it starts when I heard that heartbeat. And when I didn't hear that heartbeat, that was a life that was taken. And so that's the way I look at my reality when it comes to being pregnant and losing a pregnancy, or what's going to happen, or any of that. Maybe it's women that need to talk more about this stuff to other women. But we have a gift to give life, and we need to have respect for ourselves for that. Like, we have power for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's an incredibly beautiful thing. I can't understand why that has become so despised.
Right. And I had that talk with my 16-year-old, because in their health class last year, it was brought up, and she's just like, oh, we talked about this today. And I had to tell her, I was like, look, this is my personal experience with this, because when at 7 and I think 11 weeks, when I didn't hear those heartbeats, that was the death of a future, both times. Yeah. So I think abortion should be something that if it needs to happen, it needs to happen. That's not my decision for somebody else to make.
Sure.
But if somebody was to ask my opinion of when does birth or any of it start, well, when I heard that heartbeat, it was all on, like, oh yeah, we did it. And when you don't hear that heartbeat.
But that heartbeat is what, 6 weeks?
You can hear it as early as 5.
Yeah, well, I'm still going even before that.
When you are expecting
as a man,
baby,
which I shouldn't have an opinion, but I'm a science follower, and the science of life is it starts when the female chromosomes and the male chromosomes meet together, and as soon as that sperm penetrates the egg, mitosis starts. I think mitosis is the name. And now next thing you know, there's 2 cells. That's life.
Yeah.
That's how life begins, and that's when it starts. And where does anybody get the right to terminate it before or after? I mean, after that, it's that's a hard one, because it's like guns. Boy, if we could just snap our fingers and eliminate all guns, that would be great.
Well, then it'll just be the next weapon.
And then eliminate all abortions, or all the need for an abortion, or the reasons that people, if we could snap our fingers and all those reasons are gone, wow. But we can't do that. So we have to find a way through it. And just like everything else, especially in a democracy, in a country supposed to be, there's going to be the right that says, we want none. And on the left says, we want them all.
Yeah.
And then somewhere we have to fall in the middle. And that's not what we're doing. We're clinging so hard on both ends that we're not finding a common ground, which does certainly feel, no matter what side you're on, it feels like you're giving up.
Yeah.
Because they're so passionate on those ends.
I think there's just a lot of deceit.
Well, there's certain
in that whole
everything.
argument.
Yes.
No, but if women realize their power again, things can change. But if you're giving it to them as an option of, well, if you don't want it, you can always get rid of it. Like, it's no big deal. It's a huge deal. And I think people need to change the narrative to changing it back to, this is an important decision, whether you do or you don't. I would have never gotten an abortion. I can't have any kids anymore, but like, I never would have. But what if something happened?
Well, something happened. I mean, there are reasons for tubal ligations.
So that's why
there are medical
important.
that if it is going to cause or be potentially harm or cause the death of the mother,
right?
Yes,
you can't have a mother with 6 kids dying on her 7th pregnancy.
Well, yeah, instance of incest or rape. But what's going to happen now, if they say you can only get an abortion if it's an incest or rape, is they're going to be accusing everybody of incest and rape to get that abortion. Well, then once that happens and they go into a place like that and they say this happened because of incest and rape, there now is the legal responsibility of the person of the medical person that was reported to report that to the police.
This is why this should not be a legal issue. This is
crazy.
Something that needs to be taken with the family, their pastor, their priest, whoever they want to confide in this, and a medical doctor.
Well, I don't trust medical doctors. So
what's funny to me in all of this is we're talking about things that it just sounds like society's a cesspool.
It
all
kind
of this
is, though.
And yet the world refuses, by and large, to admit that sin is a thing.
Yeah. Or evil. That's just, if you want to make it
sin,
secular and keep God out of it, recognize evil.
Right.
Recognize unmoral behavior, stuff that's immoral.
Yeah. Recognize
it. And it's unfortunate because those that recognize it then get put to, oh, well, you're a zealot. You're this, you think you're better than me. Well, no. But I'm just pointing out there's some things that we could all do better. I see what yours is. Feel free to tell me what mine is.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think we need to spend more time looking in the mirror than,
well, that's really where it all starts.
Yeah.
Everything starts from inside.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, and it's hard to do. We've talked about this before. It's hard to be a fair evaluator of your abilities.
Yeah.
And what you do and who you are. We don't want to see our flaws.
Yeah.
But we know we have them. Most people, I think there's a few people out there that I know that don't think they have any, and this is just their world. We're all just players in it for them. But when you recognize and meet people that are truly good, you know it. And those people aren't telling people that I'm good. I'm a good person. How many times does someone tell you they're a good person until you stop believing them?
Right.
Yeah. You're good because they know it.
For some reason, politicians
people know you're good because these people know you're good and they tell people that this is a good person.
Right. Yeah.
I have to give myself a pep talk every so often. They're like, I'm a good person. I didn't deserve that.
Well, that's part of our own personal thing. Yeah, we should. We should evaluate that way because when we start feeling some sort of way, it's good to pick yourself up. We don't always, when it comes down to it, we're here alone. Milan has a wife, people they're married, they have each other, they have all kinds of things. But when it really comes down to it, we're alone. And you're the only one responsible for making your life good. It is not your wife's or your girlfriend's or your friend's responsibility to make things good for you. It's your responsibility to make good things for you. And when you do that, that exudes out to people. And they see that. Lead by example, not by your words, telling everybody how good you are. Be good. People notice that.
If you want to change the world,
lead by example.
Start with yourself.
Lead by example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You asked the question a minute ago. You kind of asked it and kept going, but you said, "How do you know? It's hard for us to evaluate what's right or good or best about us.
Yeah.
Or what's wrong with us, right? To fix it." James addresses that. He calls the scriptures a mirror. And there's something about the scriptures that when we look at them, now I know the pushback is going to be, well, yeah, that's your version of what's right or wrong or true. And that's part of the problem is we don't have a standard of truth that applies to all. I can't push that or force that on anybody else, but I found that for me, starting with improving myself starts with, first of all, I mean, I need help from a Savior. We've talked about Jesus, the Savior before. But then in that process of improvement, I've got to have something that shows me the reality of who I am, not just my behaviors. I can evaluate my behaviors. It's my heart.
Right.
And that's what I believe the scriptures do for us. They become a mirror. I can look into the scriptures. And that's part of the reason people don't want to read the scriptures. It's because when I look in there, I go, ooh.
Most people don't want to identify what's wrong with them. And I'm not. It's actually not something that's wrong with them.
Yeah.
Let's just call them flaws or things that we can do better.
Yeah.
Because typically, I think most people, there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody has their own set of things, whether. I mean, we need to go into examples. I think people probably understand. You have your own set of values. You have your own set of mannerisms. You have your own set of, you are your own person. But sometimes you see someone like Milan. I see him, he's very calm. I'm like, boy, I could use a little of that and maybe be a little more calmer in my demeanor with talking about things. Maybe not get myself so riled up, and I think that's what we should do. You look inward, but you kind of identify those selves, and then you see outwardly how someone is. I say, wow, that's the kind of person I like how he is. That's how I want to be. People really respect him, and they respect that he's honest, and they respect that he's willing to look you in the eye and say, when you ask a question, what do you think about what I did? Most people, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Nothing, and they were so placating. You know what? It's like, that wasn't the worst thing you ever did, but it really hurt me. Yeah. And I think it hurt some of the other people around you. I know you may not have realized it, and you weren't saying it to be malicious, or you didn't do this because you intended to hurt anybody, but that's what your actions led to. And most people, oh, it's nothing. They don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to make anybody feel bad for a minute. But I think when you are honest with somebody, and even if it hurts their feelings, they appreciate that, and they come back to you with a stronger friendship, or your bond between them is stronger, unless you went too far and really tore them right down, because that can happen.
Well, and that's part of the virtue of honesty. It literally builds, it creates, it moves the ball forward. Not my own personal agenda, but reality. We have to be honest with each other.
I agree with that. And I think on that note, we have to be honest with each other, appreciate each other, and love each other. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to like what everybody does.
And not everybody has to like you.
And not everybody has to like you. And I was going to say leave it on yours, but like I say to a lot of people, I've said to Amanda a million times, because sometimes she battles, do I take on an issue and talk about this and that? I said, yeah, but how do I do it? Well, whatever you do, be true to yourself while doing it.
Yep.
And as long as you're true to yourself, people will recognize that, and they will appreciate that just as much as anything. So on that note, Amanda Jones, Milan Bittenbender, this was nice finishing those last two virtues, recapping the 7 deadly sins, the other virtues, and kind of how it all works together, and kind of maybe hopefully pointing out to people maybe to look in themselves and see where our society is declining. And as they do better for themselves, and more people do just that, our society will take a turn to be, I hope, a little more moral.
Yeah.
And a little more kinder to each other, and not feel that if someone does trash you on social media, that you got to come back.
Right.
Remember, no response is no reward. All right. This is All the Things I Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. TabooTalkback.com is where you can find the other episodes. I urge you to go and listen to some of the stuff we've been doing. A lot of people are enjoying them, and I'm getting requests to do so. And you at TabooTalkback.com, you can request that someone to talk about. If you want Milan to talk about something specifically, I can run that by him. If we want, if it's for the conspiracies, or we want to talk about local politics or whatever, we've got a lot coming down the line. So.
Yeah, it'd be good to have some people reach out and say, hey, what about this? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah,
great.
And I know a lot of people that are listening to these podcasts are people that you've had in your life, probably were around you at Life Bridge, and that have known you for a long time. So I'm convinced of that. And not that I'm trying to build a ministry, but it's fun kind of building a set of podcasts that hopefully will do good for some people, and maybe put a little more of what we talked about earlier, faith, back into our lives. So, all right, all the things they don't want you to talk about. Amanda Jones, Milan Bittenbender, and myself, Rob Byrd, to all of you out there. We'll see you next time. You have a great day, night, or whatever you're doing, but do it well. All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast is part of the Rob Byrd Moondog Podcast Network. Go to tabootalkback.com for more information. Copyright 2024.